I'm Max Brantley with the Arkansas Times on Thursday, November 16th. News. First of all, let me explain something. We do these around 1:30 or 2 most days. The upshot of that is sometimes news happens after we record it. That happened yesterday. I mentioned the potential power struggle in the Arkansas State Senate. It was resolved. Gary Stubblefield dropped out of a challenge against Jonathan Dismang to be the next Senate president. Jonathan Dismang will be the Senate president for sure, just as we assumed to begin with. I promised pardon news. We did have that pardon news. It was double barrel. One, that Governor Mike Beebe has pulled back for the time being from a pardon for a sex offender who was a friend of his family. There's some new information that was filed on a child case in Faulkner County that he wants to consider first. He also revealed that he plans to pardon his own son for a felony marijuana conviction from 11 years ago. He sees him as a one-time offender who's discharged his responsibilities. I think it's a difficult issue when a governor pardons a son, even if it's on something that seems like a fair thing to do, unless every other person in this similar situation got a pardon as well. That's something we don't yet know. Another piece of news that came yesterday was Mike Huckabee's clear movement toward making a race for president. In his typical tricky fashion, he's trying to continue to hold his Fox News job, which pays a lot of money, by doing his political organizing through a 501c4 organization, which he claims is not really political. Of course, it is political. What remains to be seen if he can get away with this with Fox News, or Fox will declare the obvious that he's a candidate and can no longer be a commentator. You might ask about my clothing. I'm wearing a suit today. I just got back from the Political Animals Club, where I joined a much more esteemed group of commentators, Roby Brock, John Brumman, and Skip Rutherford, to talk about the recent elections. Guess what? The Republicans won. We didn't have much really deep insight beyond that, except to agree that Asa Hutchinson probably has a tall order to face when he takes over as governor in January. Budget hearings are underway at the state capitol. I've described those on our blog today as something of a false war. Mike Huckabee's talking about cuts here and increases there and delaying tax increases. Mike Beebe, frankly, has become irrelevant. This legislature is currently irrelevant. It has to go through these paces. That's what you do. But in January, when Asa Hutchinson finally decides what he's going to do about tax cuts, about the private option, about a number of big issues on his plate, then we'll have some idea what the budget's really going to be about. He continued to avoid questions about these issues at a news conference he held today. It was primarily to say that he now has a website, and you can find the link on our web, at which you can find out more information about his transition and apply for a state job. I love the state job application. It's open-ended. You could apply to be director of the state police. Won't get it, but you can apply and say you once sought that job. Other political news: Tom Cotton is already a man on the move. He's not in the Senate yet. He gave one of the nominating speeches yesterday in Washington for Mitch McConnell, who was elected the Senate Majority Leader. A group of very powerful lobbyists gathered to celebrate Tom Cotton's victory in Washington. We're going to be hearing a lot more about Tom Cotton. He's viewed nationally as a young man on the rise in foreign policy and other areas. Speaking of Tom Cotton, one of his key campaign aides, John Burris, a state representative whose term limited and who lost the race for Senate, told me today that he's going to continue to work on a contract basis for Tom Cotton, but he's moving into the consulting world, going to join Bill Vickery and do some health consulting. No, not lobbying in Arkansas, because that would be illegal for a former legislator. They have a cooling off period before they can do that. He did become something of an expert in health care. There are a lot of states looking at the same things. There's undoubtedly opportunities, but it's going to be difficult for him to provide advice to anybody in Arkansas without looking like he's moving into the lobbying world. We'll be watching that closely. I was interested to see the Little Rock Police Department get heavily into community engagement. It's suddenly issuing a string of news releases about various things, sometimes disparate topics. Today, for example, they announced that they're going to have a crackdown in the next week or so of people who drive their cars too close to the cars in front of them. That causes a lot of wrecks. A little safety enforcement, nothing wrong with that. At the same time, they went in a wholly different direction and said that next week they're going to announce a policy on dealing with transgender people, and they intend to treat transgender people who have a very difficult time in the world at times with great respect. Interesting thing, it perhaps will improve Little Rock's standing in the annual ranking by the Human Rights Campaign on how municipalities treat LGBT people. Also in the news today is the beginning today of the big 10th anniversary celebration of the Clinton Library. I think there's a private event tonight. There's going to be a barbecue ticketed only tomorrow night, concert open to the public but already sold out Saturday night. Look for this. There's going to be a panel all day tomorrow talking about some oral histories that were done of the Clinton administration in the years shortly after his tenure in office ended. The transcripts of former cabinet members are going to be released tomorrow for the first time. They'll be talking about everything in an unvarnished way, perhaps about a future presidential candidate named Hillary Clinton. And so that could be interesting. Finally, I want to note the passing of William H. Bowen, the 91-year-old lawyer, banker, and political figure who was a giant figure in Arkansas life, took on and beat some of the biggest, other toughest figures in Arkansas. I hope shortly after leaving here, I'm going to post a long obituary that Ernie Dumas has written about his immense history in Arkansas. I think the reading will be interesting. I'm Max Brantley. That's it for today. I'll be back tomorrow.